Hello and welcome to Yes, Those Were Words, the series within RaMoaN where I talk about the things that make my mind bend to the nth degree in order to figure out where common sense ends and madness begins. When I last talked about Doctor Who, I talked about the 8th Doctor's first and only on-screen appearance until 2013's Night of the Doctor. Here's a brief recap of my opinion of the made-for-TV film Doctor Who, The Enemy Within. Why? Oh, that looks nice. Why? Oh god. Why? Ew. Why? Are you kidding me right now? Why? As you can see, my opinion isn't exactly a positive one. While the film had its moments where it captivated me, everything else only succeeded in annoying me. For a more in-depth look at my opinion, you can read the text version at ramblesandmumblesofanerd.tumblr.com, or you can watch the YouTube version here on the RaMoaN channel. Now, we all know that the movie failed so hard that Paul McGann's Doctor was banished to the realm that is Big Finish Productions. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, by the way. But did you know that there was a plan for the Doctor had the TV movie actually succeeded? Neither did I, until I discovered something called the Leakley Bible. The Leakley Bible is a document originally created and proposed by John Leakley, an American writer who met with Philip Segal, the man behind the TV movie, on the Universal movie lot. What soon followed was the two being forced by Universal to work together on making the TV movie, and subsequently the document that would become a Bible sometime in 1994. While it was nice to know that there was a plan for a series after the film, the ideas for the series itself were as much of a mess as the TV movie. So, what exactly did Leakley and Segal have in mind? Well, we're about to take a look. Keep in mind, I am not making any of this up. There's a reason I call this series Yes, Those Were Words. Firstly, the new series was meant to be a complete reboot of the franchise starring Paul McGann as the Doctor. And already we have a red flag due to a continuity error. How is Paul McGann supposed to play the Doctor if he is not the same Doctor from the TV movie? Any fan of the original series who had seen the film would have been confused as to how the Doctor does not know about certain things his character had already been in contact with in the previous series. Maybe this would have worked better if the TV movie just starred Paul McGann as the Doctor, but Segal had to have Sylvester McCoy pass down his role as the Doctor for the sake of continuity. So in other words, the TV movie and the reboot are not linked in any way whatsoever apart from Paul McGann. We haven't even gotten into the meat of the Leakley Bible, and already the series has fallen apart. So, what would have been the story of this series? Well, it turns out that the Doctor and the Master are half-brothers, and are both the sons of a legendary explorer named Ulysses. The Doctor thus needs to explore the whole of time and space with his grandfather Borusa, who is essentially Zordon from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, as he is inside a time crystal within the TARDIS, and thus restore peace to the balance of the universe after the Master becomes the Lord President of Gallifrey. While there is certainly potential in a story like this, the plot somewhat undermines an important part of the franchise. Its name. Doctor Who. The title of the franchise is a question, one which nearly everyone in the show asks from time to time. No one knows much about the Doctor in spite of some hints and clues sprinkled here and there. In spite of episodes that take place on Gallifrey, and ideas like the Cartmel Master Plan, which you can learn more about on Radio Dead Air via a link in the description or an inevitable annotation somewhere on the video. In spite of all this, not much is known about the Doctor. So why would this series go out of its way to answer that question from the first episode? And before anyone says, because Reboot shut up, this reboot was being made by a fan who had been trying to revive Doctor Who before it was even cancelled in the first place. That's right, Seagal was a massive fanboy who wanted to bring back Doctor Who, and in the process made not one, but 2 stories that completely dismantles pre-established Doctor Who lore. Lore which I assumed Seagal liked, otherwise he wouldn't have taken an interest in reviving the series in the first place. Maybe a nerd more dedicated than myself can explain how this was supposed to work, but in the meantime, I'll just shake my head at this nonsense. And again, we are barely getting started. The episodes that had been planned at the time this reboot was conceived were mainly remakes of episodes from the classic series, ranging from the pilot episode, which was adapted from the classic Genesis of the Daleks, Fang Rock, which was a remake of The Horror of Fang Rock, and Tomb of the Sibs. Yes, Sibs. Not Cybermen, Sibs. What are Sibs? Well, Sibs were essentially the Cybermen of this reboot, but not as, well, cyber. Essentially, the Sibs were a race of partially cybernetic pirates. Yes, those were words. And yes, rather than be a metaphor for humans discarding their humanity aside to become what they perceived as stronger, the Sibs were just pirates with robot bits here and there. Because that hadn't been done before. And the horrible choices don't stop there, as even the Daleks, the most iconic characters of the franchise, got a redesign as well. Rather than be the death machines piloted by the mutated remains of a dead world, the reboot made them into Transformers. No joke. According to the concept sketches found in the Leakley Bible, and a test animation which can be found on YouTube, the Daleks had numerous modes dictated by circumstances.
My pants look more like a Dalek than this.
If they were mobile, they took on their iconic egg shape. If they were communicating, they would slightly open themselves up to reveal a human head in order to speak. And when they wanted to kill something, they would completely open up to reveal a thing. I'm not sure what to call this, but it is not a Dalek. Maybe it's what Dr. Octopus would have been if he were Spider-Man, but it is not a Dalek. You know what I call it? A bad idea. So in the end, what would Doctor Who had been had the TV movie succeeded? It would have been a series where a half-human doctor would be searching time and space for his dad, while the Master tried to block his enemy's way with iconic monsters who were no longer iconic due to redesigns. Do you not see how ridiculous this would have been? While reboots are sometimes necessary in order to liven up a franchise, some ideas for said reboots are not as well received as others. This is why, in spite of its numerous flaws, I will tolerate what the fandom calls New Who above what would have been. Heck, New Who does things better than the reboot. There was talk about the Daleks possibly discovering and inevitably fighting the Time Lords on Gallifrey within the Leakley Bible. This actually did come to pass, as there was the Time War between Paul McGann's run as the Doctor and Christopher Eccleston's debut in 2005, which has now been somewhat neutered. However, all of what I have just said does not mean everything involving the 8th Doctor was absolute tripe. As I mentioned earlier, Paul McGann has worked with the people of Big Finish Productions to create an exclusive series of audio drama adventures, which are more or less disconnected with the movie and the series that never was. No mentions of being half-human, no Master being a slimy Lord President of Gallifrey, just the Doctor on some adventures with a multitude of companions like Charlie Pollard and Lucy Miller. If you want to listen to some of these adventures, I highly recommend stories like Invaders from Mars and Chimes of Midnight, both of which have a $2.99 price tag and are absolutely remarkable for their own reasons. In the meantime, though, never stop rambling. This has been Rambles and Mumbles of a Nerd, and I thank you very much for listening to this episode.